May 13, 1940. Near Sedan, on the Meuse River, northeastern France. Dawn breaks with the sound of engines choking to life beneath a low ceiling of fog. Damp air clings to uniforms. Pine needles crunch under boots. Somewhere in the Ardennes forest, a German staff car rolls to a stop. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Bremer, operations officer attached to 19 Panzer Corps, steps out and adjusts his field glasses. He is 39, Prussian, meticulous, the kind of officer who believes wars are won with maps as much as bullets. Ahead of him, the forest opens just enough to reveal the Meuse River Valley. Thin smoke rises from French villages, already under artillery fire. Bremer hears it before he fully sees it. The deep, mechanical growl of Panzer III and IV tanks, engines idling, crews waiting. To his left, assault engineers crouch beside rubber boats and pontoon bridges. Overhead, the sky vibrates. Stuka dive bombers are forming up, their sirens not yet screaming but soon. This is not where the French expect the main blow. Only days earlier, French intelligence reports had dismissed the Ardennes as impenetrable to armored forces. A forest too dense, roads too narrow, rivers too deep. The Maginot Line, stretching like a concrete spine along the Franco-German border, was supposed to funnel any German advance into predictable killing zones. Bremer knows better now. He has spent weeks watching the impossible become routine. Behind him, General Heinz Guderian, commander of the Corps, studies a map spread across the hood of a Kubelwagen. His finger traces a thin blue line, the Meuse, then sweeps west. Once we cross, Guderian mutters, there is nothing between us and the channel. Bremer swallows. He understands the implication fully. Across the river, French defenses exist, but they are improvised. Second-line units. Reservists. Bunkers never meant to face concentrated armor. And most critically, they are oriented east, toward the Maginot Line, not south, not here. At 7:00, the Stukas come in. The sound is biblical. Sirens wail as aircraft drop almost vertically, releasing bombs that tear into French positions overlooking Sedan. Earth erupts. Concrete cracks. Communications lines vanish in seconds. French gunners, stunned and half-deaf, fire wildly or not at all. Bremer watches through binoculars as French soldiers abandon trenches, some running, some frozen. He feels no triumph, only a tightening in his chest. This is too fast. Too clean. Engineers forward, an officer shouts. Inflatable boats hit the water. German infantry paddle furiously under small arms fire. Some boats flip. Men drown under the weight of their gear. But enough make it across. By mid-morning, bridgeheads exist. Bremer receives a radio message, fragmented, urgent. Aerial reconnaissance reports minimal French armor reserves behind Sedan. No immediate counterattack. No prepared fallback line. He looks again at the map. Then it hits him. The Maginot Line, that colossal fortress system consuming billions of francs and decades of planning, is completely irrelevant to what is happening here. The German Schwerpunkt, the point of decision, is not battering itself against steel and concrete. It has slipped around it. A French artillery barrage finally lands near the river, shells screaming in late and inaccurate. Bremer barely reacts. His mind is racing ahead, visualizing arrows pushing westward. If the bridges hold, if the tanks cross en masse. The French High Command still believes this is a diversion. Bremer knows it is the war. Bremer receives a radio message, fragmented, urgent. Aerial reconnaissance reports minimal French armor reserves behind Sedan. No immediate counterattack. No prepared fallback line. He looks again at the map. Then it hits him. The Maginot Line, that colossal fortress system consuming billions of francs and decades of planning, is completely irrelevant to what is happening here. The German Schwerpunkt, the point of decision, is not battering itself against steel and concrete. It has slipped around it. A French artillery barrage finally lands near the river, shells screaming in late and inaccurate. Bremer barely reacts. His mind is racing ahead, visualizing arrows pushing westward. If the bridges hold, if the tanks cross en masse. The French High Command still believes this is a diversion. Bremer knows it is the war. May 14, 1940. West of Sedan, along the road to Bulsen. The sun is already high when Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Bremer feels the rhythm of the advance settle into something relentless. The road ahead vibrates under steel tracks. Dust hangs in the air like a curtain. Every few minutes, a motorcycle courier roars past, goggles streaked with grime, dispatch case slapping against his thigh. The crossing has held. Bremer rides standing in the staff car now, gripping the frame as it bounces over shell-pocked pavement. To either side, columns of Panzer IIIs, half-tracks filled with infantry, and fuel trucks stretch as far as he can see. This is not a cautious breakthrough. This is exploitation, the kind German doctrine dreams about and rarely achieves. At Bulsen Ridge, the French are supposed to have armor. According to captured documents, a counterattack by the 55th Infantry Division, reinforced with tanks, should smash the bridgehead and throw the Germans back into the Meuse. Instead, Bremer sees white flags fluttering from hedgerows. French soldiers emerge slowly, hands raised, faces gray with exhaustion. Some stare at the tanks in disbelief. Others ask the same question again and again in broken German or desperate French. Où est l'armée française? Where is the French army? Bremer has no answer. By midday, reports flood in. French units are withdrawing without orders. Communications have collapsed. The Stuka attacks from the day before have not only destroyed positions, they have shattered nerve. Rumors of German tanks in the rear spread faster than the tanks themselves. Bremer listens to a field telephone pressed against his ear as an intelligence officer speaks from Sedan. French fortress troops on the Maginot Line report no contact, the voice says. They are requesting clarification. They believe the main German attack has not yet begun. Bremer closes his eyes for a moment. In a concrete bunker near Longwy, a French commandant sits at a plodding table, staring at an empty map. His guns point east. His embrasures are flawless. His men are drilled to perfection. But there are no Germans in front of him, only silence. The war has gone around him. Bremer opens his eyes and looks west. The terrain is rolling now, open enough for speed. Guderian's orders are explicit. Do not wait for infantry, do not secure flanks, drive. The panzer divisions are to behave less like an army and more like a blade. At 16:30, the radio crackles again. Luftwaffe reconnaissance confirms it. French armored formations meant to counterattack have been misdirected north, chasing phantom German units in Belgium. The Allied plan, the Dial Plan, has pulled the best French and British forces away from the real blow. Bremer understands the scale of it now. This is not just a tactical surprise. It is a strategic collapse unfolding in real time. He watches a panzer commander climb out of his turret, map in hand, shouting to his platoon leaders. The men laugh, not out of cruelty, but out of disbelief at their own momentum. They were told the Ardennes would cost them days, even weeks. It took hours. As evening approaches, Bremer stops at a farmhouse commandeered as a temporary command post. Inside, maps are spread across a dining table still set with plates. A half-eaten loaf of bread lies abandoned. The owners fled recently, too recently. Guderian arrives, boots muddy, eyes burning with focus. How far today? The general asks. Bremer answers precisely. Kilometers gained. Bridges seized. Resistance bypassed. Guderian nods once. Then tomorrow, he says, tapping the map, we tear the heart out of France. Outside, engines idle through the night. Crews sleep beside their tanks, helmets pulled low, rifles within reach. Fuel trucks arrive just in time. Mechanics work by lantern light, tightening bolts, replacing tracks. Far away, deep underground, Maginot Line garrisons listen to radios that bring only fragments of bad news. No German attack. No clear orders. No explanation. They were never meant to fight this war. Bremer steps outside and breathes in the cool night air. He thinks of French generals still staring east, still believing in concrete and certainty. He thinks of the road ahead, to the Somme, to Abbeville, to the sea. The realization settles heavily, unmistakably. The Maginot Line has not failed because it was weak. It has failed because the war has already passed it by. May 16, 1940. Near Montcornet, northern France. Morning light spills over open farmland as if nothing has changed. Birds scatter from hedgerows. Church bells ring in distant villages, habit, not celebration. But on the road west, the war is accelerating beyond control. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Bremer rides with the forward command element now, closer to the tanks than doctrine would normally allow. Dust coats his collar. His field map is already obsolete, pencil marks crisscrossing yesterday's assumptions. The advance has widened into something alarming. French resistance appears suddenly, violently, and then collapses just as fast. At one crossroads, a Hotchkiss H-39 tank fires 2 rounds before being flanked and knocked out by a Panzer IV at point-blank range. At another, a French battery opens fire blindly, shells screaming overhead, but German tanks simply swing around it, leaving infantry to mop up later. Bremer watches this with a growing sense of unease. Speed was the plan. Disintegration was not guaranteed. By mid-morning, reports arrive of a French armored force counterattacking near Montcornet, led by an aggressive colonel named Charles de Gaulle. For a moment, the German advance stutters. A fuel convoy is hit. A panzer platoon withdraws under fire. Smoke rises on the horizon. Bremer listens as the radio fills with clipped, urgent voices. Enemy tanks identified, heavier than expected. Request air support immediately. Advance temporarily halted. For the first time since Sedan, Bremer feels tension tighten his spine. But it does not last. Within hours, Stukas arrive again, shrieking down onto French positions. Bombs walk through columns of tanks and trucks. German anti-tank guns are brought forward at speed. De Gaulle's force fights hard, but it is isolated, unsupported, and blind. By afternoon, the road west is open once more. Bremer marks the engagement on his map with a small red circle. One of the few French attempts to seal the breach. Already crushed. He realizes then that what they have created is no longer a breakthrough, it is a gap. And that gap is widening into a wound France cannot close. At Corbeny, refugees clog the roads. Horse-drawn carts, bicycles, families on foot. Bremer's car slows as civilians press against ditches, eyes wide as tanks thunder past. Children cry. Old men stare in silent disbelief. Some shout accusations. Others beg for directions. None receive answers. The German columns do not stop. Bremer hears a staff officer mutter, almost to himself, "They're still waiting behind the Maginot Line." That night, Bremer studies intercepted French radio traffic. Confusion dominates every transmission. Units ordered north 1 hour, south the next. Fortresses asking when the enemy will arrive. Field armies reporting German tanks behind them, a sentence no doctrine prepared them to hear. In a bunker near Metz, a French general slams his fist on a table. "This is impossible," he says. "The Ardennes cannot support armor." But the reports keep coming. German armor sighted west of the Meuse. German armor approaching the Aisne. German armor everywhere, except where it was supposed to be. Bremer closes the file and steps outside. The night sky glows faintly from burning fuel dumps and villages struck by bombs meant for crossroads. He can hear engines even now, never fully stopping, as if the machines themselves sense there is no time left. He thinks again of the Maginot Line, of its gun turrets, its underground railways, its stocked magazines and fresh concrete. all intact, all bypassed. The line was designed to absorb a war. This war refuses to be absorbed. On May 17th, orders arrive that confirm what Bremer already knows. The panzer divisions are to push hard for the coast. The objective is no longer France's border, it is its circulation. Cut the arteries. Let the body fail. Bremer folds the message and slips it into his map case. He feels no elation, only a heavy awareness that history is tilting under his feet. Once the Germans reach the Channel, millions of Allied soldiers will be trapped. The Maginot Line will stand silent behind them, a fortress guarding nothing. Bremer looks west, toward roads that stretch endlessly through open country. The gap has become a wound, and it is bleeding France dry. May 20th, 1940. Near Abbeville on the Somme River. The air smells of salt and oil. Seagulls wheel overhead, confused by the thunder of engines where fishing boats should be. When Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Bremer steps out of the staff car and looks west, he sees something few German officers ever expected to see so soon. The English Channel. German tanks sit hull down on a low rise overlooking the Somme estuary. Antennas sway in the wind. Crews smoke cigarettes with shaking hands, staring at the water as if it might vanish. A panzer commander laughs once sharply. "We've reached the sea," he says, as if testing the words. Bremer does not reply. He understands immediately what this means, not just tactically, but existentially. The Allied armies that surged into Belgium only days earlier are now cut off. Behind them lies the Channel. Ahead of them, German armor. And far to the east, silent and untouched, the Maginot Line. The encirclement is no longer theoretical. Radio messages pour in from every direction. British units retreating toward Dunkirk. French formations attempting to pivot south, only to find German columns already behind them. Supply depots captured intact. Roads choked with abandoned equipment. Bremer reads one report twice. French fortress, units request permission to withdraw from the Maginot Line. He exhales slowly. In a reinforced bunker near Hackenberg, one of the largest Maginot ouvrages, a French major listens as the request is denied. Orders are orders. The line must be held even now, even when the war has moved hundreds of kilometers away. The bunker's generators hum steadily. Ammunition racks are full. Guns are spotless. But the enemy is not coming. Bremer rides north briefly, coordinating with neighboring units. Everywhere he goes, the same pattern repeats. Pockets of resistance collapsing inward, Allied soldiers marching into captivity with disbelief written across their faces. One British sergeant, captured near a canal, stares at a panzer officer and asks quietly, "How did you get there so fast?" No one answers. By May 23rd, the halt order comes, controversial, sudden. Panzer units are told to pause outside Dunkirk. Infantry will catch up. The Luftwaffe will finish the job. Bremer hears officers argue in low voices. Some curse the decision. Others trust it. Bremer feels only unease. Speed created this victory. Stopping risks undoing it. Yet even with the pause, the damage is irreversible. The Allied front has shattered into fragments. France's strategic center has collapsed not under bombardment, but under maneuver. Bremer receives another intercepted French message that night. A fortress commander asks a question that will never receive a satisfying answer. Against whom are we defending? Bremer folds the paper carefully. The Maginot Line was built to face a war of attrition, measured, frontal, deliberate. But the war that came was fluid, predatory, impatient. It flowed around obstacles. It punished rigidity. On June 5th, the Germans resumed the advance south. The second phase begins. The French army, exhausted and disoriented, cannot reform a coherent line. Paris looms ahead like a symbol already hollowed out. Bremer passes columns of French prisoners marching east, toward the very fortifications that once promised safety. Some glance toward the horizon, where concrete turrets still stand. Their expressions are unreadable. Days later, Bremer receives confirmation. French fortress units are finally authorized to withdraw. Many cannot. German infantry now blocks the exits. Some ouvrages will surrender without ever firing a shot at the enemy. They were built to stop. Bremer stands beside a road sign pointing east, Metz 120 kilometers, and west, Paris 80 km. The direction of the war could not be clearer. He turns west. The Maginot Line remains behind him, intact, formidable, and irrelevant, a wall that did not fall but watched the war leave it behind. June 14, 1940. Eastern France, outskirts of the Maginot Line near Metz. Rain taps softly against concrete cupolas that were never breached. Inside the fortress, the air smells of oil, damp stone, and boiled coffee. The generators still hum. The clocks still tick. The war, however, is elsewhere, and nearly over. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Bremer arrives with a small escort, white flag, mounted to the antenna of his staff car. He removes his gloves before entering the ouvrage, a courtesy more instinct than regulation. A French officer meets him at the steel blast door, Commandant Henry Lemaire, unshaven, eyes ringed with exhaustion. They salute each other, not sharply, not proudly, simply correctly. Inside, the fortress is immaculate. Ammunition elevators stand ready. Artillery pieces gleam under electric lights. Maps on the walls still show German arrows pointing east, the way the war was supposed to go. Lemaire speaks first. "We have received orders from General Hunziger," he says evenly. "France has requested an armistice." Bremer nods. He expected nothing else. There is no celebration, no cheering, just a profound, echoing quiet. As Bremer is guided through the galleries, he cannot escape the irony pressing down on him. This place could have resisted for weeks, months even, against a frontal assault. Its ventilation systems are intact. Its food stores barely touched. Its guns unfired in anger. Yet it is surrendering without battle. In a barracks chamber, French soldiers sit on bunks, helmets beside them, rifles stacked neatly. One of them looks up at Bremer and asks in careful German, "Did we lose, or did the war simply miss us?" Bremer does not answer. He cannot. Outside, the countryside is dotted with identical scenes. One by one, the great fortresses of the Maginot Line fall silent, not because they are destroyed, but because the nation they were meant to protect has collapsed around them. On June 22, 1940, the armistice is signed in a railway carriage at Compiègne. The news spreads quickly. By radio, by courier, by the simple absence of further orders. Bremer stands on a ridge overlooking the forts at dusk. Their concrete forms sink into the landscape, massive and immovable. A monument to certainty, to a war imagined too narrowly. He thinks back to the morning near Sedan, the fog, the engines, the river crossings that should not have been possible. He remembers the exact moment he understood the truth. The Maginot Line had not been defeated. It had been outpaced. History will debate doctrine and blame generals. Some will say France relied too much on fortifications. Others will say speed and air power changed everything. Bremer knows the simpler reality. Wars punish assumptions. As night falls, searchlights atop the forts flicker once, then go dark. The silence that follows is deeper than bombardment. It is the silence of relevance lost. Bremer turns away and walks back to his car. The road west is quiet now. The campaign is finished. France is defeated. And behind him, the strongest wall in Europe stands untouched, a guardian that never met its enemy. Not because it failed, but because the war chose another path.